Hello and welcome to another video. So today I thought we'd do something a little bit different, let's say. Not much, just something a little bit more off the cuff. We'll start building out something from inception and ideology or ideation, whatever you want to call it. We'll sort of write up a plan, decide what we're doing with it, and kind of just build it out from there. Now, I had a few ideas of things. I'm probably going to do all of them at some point. But for now, I mean, we've got the idea of, let's say, a to-do list with local storage, maybe a simple weather dashboard, and a random quote generator, let's say. So for this, I'm going to start with the first one, like a to-do list with local storage. Let's think about what's actually involved with that. I'm going to make it a web app, so we may as well use Vite, and we'll just have like React, like a Vite React application with sort of Tailwind. Optionally, we could have a backend if we wanted like persistent SQLite storage or something, but for now, we're going to do literally with local storage, as in the thing itself, maybe, and then figure out what we want to do after that as the initial sort of thought process of what we want to do. So that's kind of the stage of my thought process so far. I haven't really thought of it too much. I'm just sort of like went, okay, obviously we say don't do a to-do list if you're going to do like a proper portfolio app, but this is more about the process of doing something. So it doesn't matter whether it's a to-do list, whether it's a full-blown, highly architected, multifaceted sort of application with a million different microservices. It's the same process. We think about what we want to do, we plan out what we're thinking, and we kind of iterate over it and kind of go through things. It's the same thing if you was like making a business, doing whatever else. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's the same process. And that's what you need to kind of get used to doing is the actual process itself. Because once you can do that process itself, it's then just once you have an idea, you can go and just do it. So let's give it a go. Let's try and approach that. So first off, I'm going to kind of think it through and draw it out. So let's use Excalibur. So I'm going to use Excalibur for this for now. It's just a simple, quick way of getting your ideas onto the thing. So I at the moment I'm only going to do a front end, so I don't even need a back end at this point. So my architecture is going to be the UI, some sort of state management, and some sort of persistence. So we got some sort of a UI. So first I'm going to go, okay, first we want some sort of a UI. This isn't me drawing a UI. This is just me blocking out the idea. We also want some sort of state management and we want some sort of persistence. So those are three entities or concepts that we want to go with. Yeah. So let's say that we want some sort of a, let's say, UI. We want some sort of state management. So grab that, move it over here. Yeah. Some sort of UI, some sort of state management. And we want some local storage. So that's kind of the architecture of our actual application. That's it. There's not a lot to it. We've got some UI, some state management, and some local storage. That's pretty much it. So we got will be, let's say, a React UI with JSX and Tailwind, for instance. And state management, we can just like use a use state hook for that or something. So we can break this down further. We can go, okay, well, let's say think of this being the architecture. So let's do this. The architecture. Yeah. Now we know we've got the app architecture. Let's go think about our next step. So we want to now go and break them down. So our this one, our UI. What's our UI going to consist of? Our UI is going to consist of React. It's going to need JSX components. It's also going to use Tailwind. So this is just kind of thinking through what it is that we're going to be doing in sort of a graphical way. So let's make that a bit smaller there. So we've got it. Just want these to be like entities that we can think through. So we've got that part. That's the UI. Then the state management. All I'm thinking for this is we're gonna, oops, didn't want to use the same color, but it doesn't really matter that much, but I just want to be consistent. So what we used green for state management, we use green for state management. So for the state management, I kind of just want to use a hook. So use state. Yeah, so that's all I need for state management at this point. We don't need to over architect the whole thing, so we can keep it fairly straightforward and simple. At this point, I'll just clean this up a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's just ideas on a thing. It's like scribbling down your ideas. Okay. And then the final thing is local storage, which is basically for persistence. That's it. So, I mean, we could just do that. Yeah, let's say. So for our local storage, the idea is we want that used for persistence. And that's pretty much it. We just need to yeah, so that's basically all we're doing, using local storage for persistence. And that's kind of our use cases here, what we've got. Right. So we've got our UI, we've got our state, we've got our local storage persistence, what we do. We could swap out local storage for something like a SQL-like database, for a SQL database, a MongoDB. That's something. The nice thing about splitting this up means that we can do that. You know, it allows that sort of ability to be modular. So this is just simple thoughts. It's not anything special there. It's just when you're thinking through these things. So next, I want to think about, well, what about components? So first off, let's think about this part here, the actual UI. What components will I want? So I'm just going to make a list of the things. Yeah. So let's do that. Let's do that. So let's start with the first one. Let's say, obviously, our main part is going to be our app.jsx. That'll be our main sort of entry point. Maybe we want some sort of a header component. Let's think, what else would we want? Maybe a task list of some sort. Let's think. Maybe a task item and a task input, depending on what we're doing. Task item. What else? Task input of some sort, in case we need to kind of add stuff to the task. Let's think. Then we need to think about, well, that's basically our UI. So let's put that into a little thing here. That's our UI, right? When I say UI, I haven't drawn any pictures of UI actual, we're not designing the UI in that way. We're architecting our application, which requires a bit more sort of logical thinking than it does drawing things. I'm just using this as a medium to kind of sort of scribble down ideas, basically. So that's the UI now. So now that we've done UI, what else do we need? We can think about the state. So this will be like, think about what's the data flow going to look like. So think about how that might look. Let's think. So I'll have, first thing might be, let's say data flow. So for our data flow, first thing I'm thinking is if I'm going to add a task. Right, so what's the first thing? User inputs some sort of task. So let's say that they do it inside, what component do they use? Let's say task input. Yeah, so they're going to put it inside task input. Then what are they going to do? Basically, now the flow of the data will be task input will then pass the new task back to the application. So now I'll say task input passes the new task back to the app, right? Then the app itself updates the state with the new task. Then we get a state update trigger that happens. So what we want next is, so basically the state update then triggers a re-render of task list. So that's kind of adding a task. That's what happens. That's the flow of the data and how it happens. What about if we complete a task or delete a task or something? So complete or delete a task. It's another thing to do, right? So what happens in that situation? Basically, we want a user to interact with a task item, whether that's clicking a button, delete, doing whatever. Notice that typo for the win. But basically, we want them to click a button for our purpose. And maybe they'll click delete, maybe they'll click completed, whatever the UI we decide upon. But in general, the user interacts. Then the interaction then triggers a state update in the app. Let's put that. The interaction triggers a state update inside the app. Okay. What do we want it to happen next? Well, so we want the app to update the task list accordingly. Yeah. So then the app updates the task list accordingly, as in mark as complete or deleted, whatever you want to do. And then after that's happening, basically the update to the state will trigger a re-render, basically. Okay, so that's basically another sort of flow update. So we've got the adding a task is a feature. Completing or deleting a task, another feature. So that we're kind of breaking it down and thinking about the concepts of what we want to do. And we're building out kind of a feature set of what we want to be able to do. Now let's think about, that will do for the data flow. Really, we want to be able to add a task and either complete or delete a task. There's basically two real features of this application. And again, when you're starting to make an application that you want to get to most sort of like minimum viable product or minimum viable project or whatever you want to call it, minimal lovable product, you basically want to minimize the amount of features that you're ever building to begin with, because you don't want to spend 5 years building out features and never release an application. So we've got two major features of this application. First is adding tasks. The other one is, let's say, delete or completing tasks. That can be kind of synonymous with each other. So that's kind of the flow of the data and how we want it. The next thing I want to think about is how we're dealing with the local storage. So let's set up local storage. So let's say local storage. How do we want to deal with this? So first, we want to think on the initial render, we want to load the tasks from local storage. Maybe we'll do a use effect, for instance. So we'll do something like use effect. Yeah. and we'll deal with like doing some JSON tricks and putting stuff into places and stuff. But then also on state changes, where, for instance, tasks are added or removed, we want to save tasks to local storage. Again, funny enough, we'll do another use effect maybe because it's kind of re-rendering and dealing with the stuff. Okay. So we've basically got these different sort of things that can happen based on what we've got here. Okay. Let's think about the layout of the UI next. That's the data flow. We've thought about the local storage. Now let's think about the actual sort of the layout of our actual UI. So let's say basic UI layout, let's say. Actually, let's not do that just yet. First, let's say this is our data flow, local storage and stuff. This is our first start of this part. So that's fine. It's its own thing. So let's just wrap this in something. Let's go, okay, there it is. That's its own thing. Let's move that out of the way now. So we've thought through things and we're just slowly moving to the next thing. So we're just using this like a scratch pad. Next, I want to think of the basic UI layout, right? This I can just go, okay, let's draw out, here's the page, whatever. Maybe we've got the header up here in the top somewhere with like to-do list or whatever you want to call it, or task manager or anything. Maybe we've got another section underneath here with our little form or our way of interacting or adding a task and stuff. Then maybe here we've got our list of tasks. So this would be like basic sort of layout. So let's say for here, we've got our header. Let's do in black. Let's say to-do list. Something brilliantly centered there, isn't it? But you know what I mean? Just this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just kind of a thought process or how we're going to approach things or whatever. So just general idea. So we want a to-do list of some sort. So this is like the header. Maybe we want the actual thing to interact with. So we want like, let's say, add task. And then we want some sort of a sort of area to add the task to. And then a button. And the button, we'll just have it say, add that to the button. I'll click on this. Can I actually just change it? There we go. So now we basically got add task. You type in your task, click the add button. Then we've got a list of tasks. Maybe it's something like, it can be numbered, it doesn't have to be, but let's say 1. Whether it's completed or not, task 1. Maybe at the other end, we've got a delete. So in fact, I can draw these actually, that's fine. So let's draw a delete button there. Maybe that one has a red, like I'm going to do this. Delete might have like a red thing there, something. And then say delete. Something like that, let's say. But I don't know. I'm just like spitballing here and making stuff up. In fact, I think I'll just do something like 1 and then do like the actual task itself. I don't know. I'm just going to give you, let's say this. And that's your actual task. Maybe I'll move that over a little bit. Doesn't, like I say, this can be whatever you want, really, basically, whether it's completed or not. I mean, let's do this. Maybe it's, there we go. And we just like have a tick box or no tick box or something in there or whatever. So then we'll say, let's say this was task 1. Okay. Now let's say that we've got a bunch of these. So that's 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Just however many there are. Yeah. Yeah. So just have your list of tasks or whatever. Now let's imagine task 2 is completed. We could mark it as completed. So we could just do something like this. If it's completed, maybe we have a completed thing there or something. You know what I mean? Doesn't really matter too much, but let's pretend that's completed. So now we've got the ability to kind of look and think about, okay, well, there's simple basic idea of a UI. Okay. Now we've got this sort of basic idea. And let's do this. Okay. Yeah, there's our awesome, amazing, simple UI design there. We've got this just amazing sort of thing there. It's great. So, I mean, look how amazing we got. It's just cool. Yeah. But literally that's the thought process. This is how you need to think to kind of go, okay, well, how is it going to look? How am I going to approach it? What are the things I need to think about when approaching making a new application? Okay. So we're thinking, okay, let's do some sort of React tailwind. We want to use some sort of state. We want to maybe use local storage, and then later on, maybe we can add database or whatever to it. And basically, that's the process. And this is, I think, we'll probably call it here because it's gone on for quite a while. And I'd like to do maybe the next one where I turn around and sort of start making this thing, or maybe write out a few more things. I don't know. We'll see. I think realistically, I'll probably write out the steps that we would do to develop it in general and the use cases of each of those components, for instance. Maybe make a little design doc. I don't know whether I'll do that live or whether I'll do it off screen and then we've got something to read through perhaps. And then we can get started finally actually coding the thing up. You know what I mean? At this point, there's no code here. This is just an idea of a thing to build out. Yeah. So it's not a real full design. It's just, okay, this is what you could possibly do. And again, it's a bit contrived. We've got a task list, you know what I mean? We've got a to-do list, the thing where you don't really usually say, yeah, let's do this thing. But the thing is, it's got all of the components and the ideas and the parts to any other application. You're just doing the same thing, rinse and repeat. Okay. And it's the thought process that I want to get across to you. Okay. So it's been awesome. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.